The founder and first chief coordinator of the temple, the late Mr. ATS Ratnasingam, was born on 27th November 1933 in Alvai, northern Sri Lanka. He came to the UK in 1964 with his wife Karunesri, both in search of a better quality of life. Many were to follow in the 1960s, and in the 1980s, these were troubled times in Sri Lanka where ethnic inequality was very evident. They settled in London where they raised a family, 2 daughters and a son. Being one of the first few Sri Lankan families of that time to arrive and settle in the UK, they and others soon realised that it was imperative to establish a religious and cultural base for the growing Tamil community in the UK. In the early years, the only option for the small community in London was to worship in their own homes. On special occasions, realising that group worship was a vital part of our religion and culture, they opened the doors of their own home, and there the community celebrated Shivaratri. Their heart and house were always open, and this meant that most Sri Lankan Tamils who came to London in the 1960s would have come there, either for a meal, to share in prayers, or even to stay until they got settled. For many years, they continued to have religious services at their house. However, as the number of Tamils coming to the UK steadily grew, the community elders realised that there was an urgent need for a consecrated Hindu Saivite temple here in the UK. In 1981, the Shree Ghanapathy Temple had its Kumbhabhishekam and became the first consecrated Hindu temple in Europe. From small beginnings, the temple grew into a thriving centre for Hindu religious, cultural and social activities.
Over the years, the late Mr. Ratnasingam, who was a civil and mechanical engineer, helped and supported many of the other Hindu temples that were subsequently built in the UK. He was a dedicated supporter of the late Mr. N. Sabhabadi Pillai, would always honour and acknowledge as the founding force of Hindu Saivism in the UK. He also supported many of the Tamil charitable organisations set up here in the UK. A man of action, he was always looking for different ways in which he could help organisations that were set up to help our community here in the UK, and also our people struggling back in Sri Lanka. He did his utmost to help highlight the outrageous violations of human rights being carried out on our people back home, and was an unwavering supporter of the Tamil movement. Although he helped so many Hindu temples and Tamil organisations here in the UK, his greatest and most lasting contribution to our community has been the Shree Ghanapathy Temple. As a Hindu Saivite, he created a temple with beautiful deities and traditions that have proved to be a focal point for many Hindus living in the London borough of Merton and beyond. As Sai Baba devotees, he and his wife also created a Sai Mandir with the blessings and guidance of Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba. That was the first purpose-built permanent temple to Swami in Europe. He was keen to spread the message of Hinduism to other parts of society and was one of the founding contributors to interfaith dialogue in London. His in-depth knowledge of Hinduism and its philosophy, and his ability to explain complex ideas in the simplest of terms, meant that he was a great teacher of children and many schools and teacher training colleges and people of other faiths flocked to the temple to learn more about Hinduism.
Throughout all the work that he did for the temple and for the community, the one thought that was constantly in his mind was for the future generations of Hindu children being brought up here in the West. He realised how easy it would be to lose our young men and women to the attractions of the West, and how much they would lose if they lost the knowledge of our ancient culture and heritage. He therefore did much to promote the teaching of Hindu religious instruction, Carnatic vocal, instrumental and Bharatanatyam dance to the younger generation, and also gave his fullest support and encouragement to Tamil schools that were set up in London and in Surrey. He always was happiest when surrounded by children, and too became a child in their presence, teasing and playing with them, and took great pride in talking about the achievements of our younger generation, both in the academic and extracurricular field. The final years of his life contained 3 major milestones. 1, he was the chairman of Highgate Murugan Temple, where he successfully led the temple through its renovation and Maha Kumbhabhishekam. 2, He was one of the founders and the first chairman of the Federation of Saiva Hindu Temples in March 1998 and held its first Saiva conference in July 1998. And finally, he took his beloved Lord Ganesha for the first time around the streets surrounding the temple for now our annual their chariot festival.
On the 16th of August 1998, whilst in India, his life came to a tragic and untimely end. He had gone to India to choose additional deities for the temple and also to arrange for a group of traditional sculptors to come to the UK. In his passing, as in life, his thoughts were for the temple. His passing was a crushing loss for his family and for the community. But his good work lives on in the shape of the temple and the religious legacy he has given to Hindus in South London. The family and the wonderful group of dedicated volunteers who work at the temple and Sai Mandir continue his work for the community and have built on the strong foundations that he laid for us all. His picture hangs inside the temple entrance, but we still also feel his presence in the temple, the most important place in his life.
This is a loving tribute to my Ratnasingam uncle, who I always remember as being staunchly dedicated to the performing arts and culture, and he was such a driving force to everyone performing and having a chance to perform in the temple. It's with this in mind that I always remember Uncle for both his generosity, his laughter, and all his love for absolutely all the children that walked through the temple. I'm about to sing today Manasa Sancharare in Ragam Sama, composed by Shree Tyagaraja. Manasa Sancharare, Manasa Sancharare, Brahmani 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 Manasa Sancharare. Madashiki pincha lankrita chikure, Madashiki pincha lankrita chikure, Madashiki pincha lankrita chikure, Madashiki pincha lankrita chikure, Mahaniya kapola vichita mukure, Mahaniya kapola vichita mukure, Manasa Sancharare, Shri Ramani Kucha Dukha Vihare, Shri Ramani Kucha Dukha Vihare, Sevak Jana Mandira Mandare, Shri Ramani Kucha Dukha Vihare, चन्द्रचकोरे परमहंसमुख चन्द्रचकोरे परमहंसमुख चन्द्रचकोरे परिपूरित मुरली अवतारे परिपूरित मुरली अवतारे मानस संचररे मानस संचररे ब्रह्मणे मानस संचररे संचररे संचररे